Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are joined by our dear friend Randy Swaim joining us live today. And again, we're going to dive into all his endeavors, his leadership. And just to bring up, we did talk before the break, and I want to commend you on your work in Niagara Falls. Tell us a little bit about that connection, because I just came back from my family. You mentioned
Yeah,
you were in the 107th, was it?
yeah, 107th Fighter Group up at Niagara Falls, and basically it was amazing because I was able to move up there, and for about 7 years, not only well, actually it was for longer than that. It was from 85 up until about let's see, up until 93, kind of thing. So it was 8 years, kind of thing of being there. And but I also served as the leader and as an operator with Flight International over at Griffiths Air Force Base, and we were
Wow.
a strategic air defense training contractor. So our job was to take Learjets that had electronic jamming on it, and you know, chaff dispensers and all that. And we would go up and practice and be the bad guys. And so our whole job was to go up and active and facilitate the ongoing training of the air defenders. And so guess what? Part of my career was doing that, and a big part of my career was with the 107th, and I was actually flying, you know, with F4s, and so it was a great part of my career. I loved it, and I
Beautiful.
appreciated my time up in Niagara Falls and
Well,
everything. So
great shout out to the beautiful city, town, and all the people. We had a great time. And also, if you don't know, Randy is a certified Marshall Goldsmith executive coach as well. The
yep,
name of the company, Coaching for Relevance. And
yep.
what would you like to speak about today, darling?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to mention, because I know last week we mentioned a little bit of the dysfunctional aspects that managers kind of do sometimes, and I'm going to expand on that a little bit
Sure.
here today. But I'm going to bring part of the neuroscience aspect to it that we have to sort of be aware of when you're and so often managers aren't aware of that, and they just set aside stuff and just do whatever they want, and that is not really what you want to do. So uh, and I'll show a key example of that from what happened with a training training day with a couple of pilots and all that. So I'll just mention that when we get started. And but like last week, I talked about some of the rough spots that one uh, instructor had on one of their partial, on one of their fellow instructors and everything, and that's not what you want to do. And so I'll just kind of mention one aspect today, which kind of highlights on that. But
Sure.
I'll also talk a little bit about the neuroscience transmitters, the chemicals that the brain releases that we have to be aware of, and how we have to minimize the impact of the bad stuff.
Hmm. All right. Well, let's get started, Randy. Thank you for always being here. And let's begin.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, as you know, I'm always loving just being on here with you, my friend. I appreciate you and all that. So I'm just glad that we get to do these. So yeah, good deal. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll go and get started. But one thing that I will mention on this, and then I'll show you the dysfunctional aspect that somebody had, and people that are listening to this, when you're talking about being a leader or really bringing leadership to your team and all of this, these are things you've got to throw in the trash and not do. And that's what a lot of people don't fully understand. If you get somebody that their whole mindset is on playing control freak games and just making everybody just capitulate to them,
Mm-hmm.
you're not being a leader. And you know what? You're not really bringing success to your team. And and so and what I'll do is before we talk about it, I'll just mention one thing here that I mentioned on a show fairly long time ago that's part of the neuroscience. And when you think about it, you remember one of the things that I brought with neuroscience is that the brain generates what is referred to as neurotransmitters. And what those are is there's certain chemicals in how the brain releases to make certain feelings happen based on what the brain is sort of thinking and you know envisioning and everything like that. And the one thing that I will mention today is the neurotransmitter of norepinephrine. And people may remember from a previous show that remember norepinephrine is the chemical that makes your brain do one of two things. It makes it just sit aside and go, oh, I'm not doing nothing, forget it. I'm just going to go over here. But the most common thing that it does with norepinephrine is it has you jump into a fight and creating a fight, kind of thing. And so those are the two aspects of the norepinephrine that sometimes people don't think about. And very often the brain can be releasing that in a way that we didn't realize initially. And you know what? We have to be aware of what we're sensing and is it appropriate. And what I will do is, excuse me,
No problem.
what I will do is there was uh, there was one simulator session that I'll just sort of share with you that had three three certified instructors in it because two of them were getting their just their annual kind of sign off for their certification and everything, just their recurrent sort of sign off and everything. And two of them, so you had one up in the left seat as the captain, one in the right seat. And of course, after the halftime, they were going to kind of swap and all that. But but the other instructor was sitting in the back. He was the one that was driving the session, operating the sim and all of that kind of stuff. But what was amazing on this, and I'll just kind of share with it, and this is something that people do not want to be. Now, I will tell you one negative, disrespectful aspect about how the pilot in the right seat did this,
Okay.
but then I'll also tell you how the actual instructor responded perfectly. And so, as they were getting, doing it, there was one time where he had one thing that when they were, selecting a button up here or whatever, the indication didn't come on right, which suggested that a pump was not working, was inoperative kind of thing. And he asked a question of um, the instructor was in the left seat up there, and he kind of said basically right. And I said, how long will the airplane sort of, how long will the APU run if you start that up and everything? And he said, probably just 10 minutes. And I went, there you go, kind of thing. And I said, that's kind of a limit on it in general. Well, what happened was when the instructor that was in the back seat or in the instructor's seat right behind the two pilots said that, the instructor that was in the right seat sort of acting as a co-pilot. And this was amazing because what he did is he was sitting there, he turned around like this and he looked at the instructor right in the eyes. And what he said was there was pure, anger and you know, you know, stuff on his face. And he looked at him and he said, you know what? You're nothing. I I hate you and I hate what you're doing, stuff like this. And and he was sitting there looking at him like this. But the instructor did the right thing. What
Mm-hmm.
he did very calmly, he looked at him in the eyes, and then all he did is he took his finger and he pointed his hand to the front of the cockpit And he said, turn your face back to the cockpit and do your job. And that's all he said, kind of thing. And that other one did just that. But the fact that he, said it the way he did and came across as the way he did it, and the fact that he said, "You're disgusting and I hate you,"
Oh,
kind of thing, basically. And he said, "I hate you," and what he was doing is trying to, his whole mindset is to try to see if you can just, play control freak games to just have everybody be controlled and just do it the way you want. Just that's it, kind of thing. And that is dysfunctional when you're talking about professional training and everything. But the bottom line is, what I will say is that his reaction was driven by that norepinephrine. Because when you're creating that hate, that, that anger, that force, and that, attacking mindset,
yeah.
that's the norepinephrine. And the bottom line is, the other instructor did it perfectly because he didn't respond the same way, and he
Mm-hmm.
didn't let it, fire him up. What he did is he got him back into what he needed to be doing, kind of thing, and just doing it. And he didn't have any internal aspects about this. But the bottom line is, remember, there's, like I said, last week I mentioned one thing that instructor did, which was kind of goofy and all. And this was another case when, and particularly when you have somebody that is looking at somebody on their team and they say, you know what, you're nothing. I hate you. That's ridiculous. And that is unprofessional and it's unethical when you're in a professional environment and all of that. And so you just got to kind of, it's very interesting that when you look at this from the standpoint of norepinephrine and you have an understanding of what that is, that, it's really cool when somebody tries to play that game with you and does that, and you are not, you know, fired up or anything like that, which a lot of people, and you know this today, a lot of people, when people kind of attack like that, they get fired up because it's like, I just got to take you down before you do, all this kind of stuff. And that is not, in a professional environment, that is not what you want to do. Now, if you're in a combat environment, yeah, you got to go shoot the other plane down before they try to shoot you down and stuff like that. But the bottom line is, in general, in a professional and an ethical leadership environment, that is not how you want to interact. And the bottom line is, just because somebody that is talking to you is interacting that way, that doesn't mean that you have to do it. And it doesn't mean that you commit to them. No. And this instructor didn't do that. And but it means you don't have to let them make you mad. You don't have to let them get you all fired up, but you also don't have to let them disconnect what you're trying to accomplish and really getting it there to begin with and all. And so that's just something to think about, that when you're talking about that aspect a little bit, it's a little bit of a, ongoing, expansive kind of what I was just touching on last week. But it's when you're talking about true teamwork, um, there are some people that, what, they just, their whole mindset is to just make everybody else just shut their brain off and capitulate to what I say, and you just do it exactly the way I want you to do it. And you know what, that is not true leadership. That is not true leadership. And the bottom line is, it's just something to think about, that, again, so many people today don't fully understand, but there's some neuroscience awareness in that, but there's also some real leadership. Because guess what? Real leadership doesn't necessarily do that. Now, if somebody's going out to attack your team and to kill them, yeah, you may need to either run your team away or go in and fight them. I mean, all that, kind of thing and everything. But the bottom line on that is that uh, if you see somebody on your team that maybe routinely or maybe every now and then is coming up with that kind of an insight, coming up with that kind of a comment to their team members, you know what? You have to grow them and make them so that they're not doing that anymore, because that is negative, and that is, going along with um, the norepinephrine and everything. But the other part of this is too, if you think about it, what they're doing, their whole mindset is to try to see if they can just control you. But what they're actually trying to do is to cause you to just take your brain and set it aside. And it can make you stop thinking. It can make you stop processing. It can make you stop coming up with the radical answers. Because here's the thing, and this is what a lot of people in our world today don't fully understand. But regardless of where you are as a leader in your team, there are some situations where you may have somebody who's a less, experienced person on your team who is coming up with a radical question or something that is really illuminating an amazing solution that nobody on the team thought about yet. And you know what? That can happen, but that doesn't happen if you're doing it in the way this guy did and just trying to shut people down. Like I said, the instructor had my total compliments for how they responded to it, because they just, like I said, he didn't get mad. All he did is he went, and then he told them, take your face back to the front and do your job. And that's it. And so it's just something to think about, that when you're
Yeah.
um, talking about those aspects in a unpredictable situation, if your only mindset is, well, you know what, I'm just going to tell them what to do and leave it at that, and they just got to listen to me, they can't question nothing, and all that kind of stuff, you're not getting the role done. You're not growing your people, and you're not doing. And the other part of it is part of your narcissistic arrogance, because one of the things that you're trying to do is to try to say that I'm the only one that knows anything. I'm the only
Yeah.
one that's worth anything. And you know what? No, you're not. No, you're not. And so it's just something to think about, that I throw out there, is for people to be somewhat aware of the challenging situations that can sneak in, but also be out there and have some awareness on it as to when somebody's doing something wrong, like this person was, and what are you going to do right, and how are you going to respond to it correctly. And that instructor did, and these are just some aspects that people think about. And I tell you what, like I said, if you make it so that you're not throwing your people aside and just trying to kind of shut them down and sit them down and you just shut up and wait, kind of thing and all that,
Mhm.
if that's all you're looking to do, you may be missing the real solution that they may have been just initially thinking about. And you never know. And so it's just something to think about, that when you're talking about this aspect of your team, and it's very aligned with organizational maneuverability, because guess what? Not everything is predictable. In a lot of the situations that happen, it can come out with something that is a little bit different than what you would have just academically expected, kind of thing. But if all you're doing is just threatening your people and trying to get them to just, shut down and just, just kind of uh, capitulate to you and all that, if that's all you're trying to do, you're not doing anything for your team. And it's just a key aspect that a lot of people sometimes in today's world don't fully understand. And you need to make sure that, and I'll tell you, when you're the leader of a team, and when you're thinking about it, and you're the leader of the team, you need to make sure that the team members are connecting with each other in such a way that they're, maximizing the opportunity of the real success, and none of them are actually doing what this person did. And so it's just something to think about on that when you're talking about um, reaching the success and the results that you want and things like that. So it's just one more aspect of kind of what we were talking about last week, but it brings a little bit of the neuroscience aspect to it. But just some things to think that that your team members and your leader has to be aware of. All you're trying to do is just cause them to capitulate and shut down, and now you're not getting it done. And so just something to think about. But how you react to them if they're doing such a dysfunctional, statement like that or whatever, um, how you react is everything. And that instructor, like I said, he didn't get mad.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there was nothing even in his body stuff that that made it mad, but just pointing forward and saying, "Turn your face back to the front and do your job." And that's but how you respond is key, but also how you initiate is key. And so we have to have a better understanding of how that can really get in the way and cause a problem, or what do we need to do about it. And even if somebody does something like that and brings that vindictive approach or whatever, guess what? How you react can be everything. And that doesn't mean you just capitulate. No, doesn't mean you just surrender. Nope. It just means that you don't let it
Mm-hmm.
drive or cause the problem. And so I leave that just for people to think about, in particularly in rapidly changing environments and organizational maneuverability stuff and all that. So it's just a picture that came through with that, what I was talking about just briefly last week and this week. And so I just bring it down in that. Just understand the neuroplastician, the neurotransmitters, and understand what your brain is making you feel, and is that really right? And how do you need to really respond to that? And that's like I said, because the neurotransmitters are the different chemicals. There's about seven of them that the brain releases to make you feel certain things. But the norepinephrine is the one that can get you into a fight. And you know what? Don't need to do that. So just something to think about. Understand how what you're feeling, what your brain is making you feel, but also what you need to do a little bit different.
Well, let me see. You obviously, as a leader, as all you've accomplished, all you do, and I know we speak a lot about this process of leadership and how you're helping so many people. But what about you in particular? Have you actually changed any of your leadership style from back in the day when you were in the 107th? Like, have you learned, or has leadership for you and the way you handle things, has that changed over time?
It's changed slightly, but I will say this, that, and it's not true of maybe everybody, but I will say this, that when I went through my uh, Air Force journey, the squadron commander that I had when I was in the 335th Chiefs was
Mm-hmm.
Richard B. Myers, and he actually became the very first Air Force chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff years later. But I learned so much about leadership from him in the way he interacted, in the way he did what he did, in the way he connected, and all this. And I learned a lot from that in that particular time period. But also, when I got up to the 107th, guess what? The commanders and the squadron commanders and all that were very aligned with that also, and just so I learned an awful lot from all of that, and I got a chance to apply that when I became the site manager at Griffiths Air Force Base, because would I got to practice how I was connecting with the members of the team and things of that nature. And so it's been a journey for sure, and I'm glad of it. It's it's been a good one.
Well, thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you here. And someone wants to reach out to you, tell us about how. And don't forget, we must plug the book, the movie. How do we contact you for all of those? And just tell us, the names and titles of those two, please.
I'll make it easy, but if you go to my website, coachingforrelevance.com, and if you scroll all the way down to the very bottom of the homepage, you'll see my email down there and you'll see my cell phone number down there. But what I will also say is, if as you're scrolling down, you'll come up with two big squares in it where it highlights some things. One is it highlights the movie and it highlights the autobiography, and somebody can click on that and it takes you right to the point where you can purchase it and stuff. And but the bottom line is that it's been an amazing story of my life journey and everything. And what I will say is simply this, and I think you know this already, that the title of both of them is the same. It's entitled "Bring Freedom to Potential."
Beautiful.
And what it is, it's in your journey for all of us. In your journey, are you truly bringing freedom to potential, or is your entire focus just on trying to control everybody?
Good
If
to
that's
know.
what you're looking to do, you're not really doing that well. And
Right.
I will tell you this, that if you're bringing freedom to potential in a positive way, people are going to experience you and things different. And
Yeah.
you know what? They're going to kind of get to a point where they want to follow you. And that is what is really good about that.
Got it. Well, thank you again. It was a pleasure having you here. Enjoy your week, the rest of the weekend, and enjoy, the long weekend. And thank you for all you do.
Sounds good.
All right,
You
sweetheart.
bet. Well,
Enjoy the
I
rest of the
appreciate it, my
day.
friend, and we'll see you next Wednesday, probably.
You
So
got it. Thank you
I
so much,
appreciate. I
honey.
hope you have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Bye, Head.
Okay. Bye bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.